Good night, iTube. It's Abla. Today I want to talk about the myth of the so-called black woman, myth of any type of persona that is put on us in the world and that we pick up in the world, the myth of a so-called identity. And it's not just the black woman, I want to focus on the myth of the black woman. It's even the myth of the so-called African woman, West African, East African, South, North African. It's all it's fake. It's not real. We are all, not all of us, we who are so-called black people, those of us with melanin, we are indigenous. We are of the earth. We are the organic people, the natural persons of the earth, right? We are the natural people, indigenous. We are indigenous persons, and that's it. We are native to the earth. We are reality, and that's all. However, in the world, there are so many different identities, but they're all false, and we hold on to them so tightly. People are so proud to be West African, so proud to be African American, proud to be black, so to speak. We're proud to be black, so to speak. But all of this is fake. Like I said, we are all just native. We just need to be reality. So I wanted to talk about this because these identities cause us harm, to be honest. When I hold on to those types of personas, even the way I'm speaking English to you now, like I spoke about before, how language shapes the mind, your identity that you hold on to, like, I'm West African, that also shapes the mind and it shapes our behaviors. So we need to let go of these personas, because being a black woman is dangerous. Being a West African woman is dangerous. Being an East African woman, it's dangerous to hold on to these personas. So let me preface this by just talking about myself a little bit. I was born in West Africa, so I'm a so-called West African female. But I went to school in the States, so suddenly there's this persona of being a black woman, a black female. And at the same time, in school, I was mostly taught, most of my teachers were Caucasian. Most of my teachers were white. When I think about it, yeah, most of my teachers were white, especially when I think about so-called kindergarten, first grade, second grade. When I was learning to speak English, I learned to speak from white people. So some people might even look at me and say, oh, that's a so-called Oreo. Like people say in the States, it's an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside. Because the way I talk, I learned to speak English from a white person. So that's how I'm gonna talk. Not really attached to that at all. I don't have any attachment to that English language. If I could never speak English and only use native tongues, I would do that. But unfortunately, to even communicate on this platform of iTube and to communicate to others around me, sometimes I have to use what the white people taught me and how the white people taught me to speak. And maybe that makes me come across as an Oreo. But that again is just another persona that I do not hold on to at all. However, it's a dangerous persona. It causes division to say, she's black, but she's white on the inside. I learned to speak English from a white person, so English is I'm not attached to that at all. I'm not attached to that language. But that persona of a white girl comes up. I even grew up around a lot of white girls. So again, that persona of a white girl comes up. So to tell my kind of story in the world, I'm born West African. And just saying West African doesn't mean you're native, doesn't mean indigenous. I'm born West African, which is another persona, another identity. Hold on, my arm. I'm holding this thing up. My arm hurts. Okay, I'm born West African, another persona. Moved to a place where I'm suddenly viewed and become a black woman, a black female. At the same time, learning to speak and in this environment where there's so many different cultures, like white woman, like a white girl, the white girl persona. And there's so many cultures where I grew up: Indian, Pakistani, Chinese, Korean. I had a Korean best friend growing up, if she's watching this. I even remember some Korean words. That just shows you there's so many different personas in the world that we do not need to hold on to because they are dangerous. So to hone in on the black woman, and even this white girl persona some people might see me as and have seen me as in the past, like, oh, she's an Oreo, she act like a white girl. None of that is me, and none of that is you. The black woman persona can be so dangerous because it puts you into a box of what, if we take it back, if we take it far back to slavery and things like that, the black woman was created through slavery. The definition and the boxing of the black woman was made by the slave master. They made this word and this definition when in reality we came and we were originally just and lived in as just native persons. Maybe we came and we were West Africans holding on to that persona. Those who were taken through slavery, maybe they were holding on to the persona of West Africa, Central Africa. If you see this video cut, it's because I'm having to fix the camera. But holding on to the personas of West Africa, Central Africa, we know a lot of enslaved persons came from West and Central Africa. But still, slavery was going on in the North and the South, and persons hold on to those identities. However, the so-called black woman did not exist before slavery. The so-called black woman came out of slavery, and so why would we hold on to something that came out of slavery? And I know that we've made it new, you know, black power, empowerment, African American culture is a real thing. I'm not denying that. African American, those of us who were enslaved, became enslaved and taken to the so-called Western world, had to create something, had to create a culture. And so some type of culture was created, so-called black culture, created in the States, for example, even in the UK, all different types of places, but created in the States, for example. And I'm not taking away from that, but I'm saying that we can't fall into the traps that come with that because the slave master created that identity. So with that identity comes things like the black woman is even something that sounds good, like the black woman is so strong, stronger than her male, for example. The black woman is so strong. That sounds positive, and it is positive because we are strong, but we are not to be individuals. We're not to be on our own. Just because we're strong, we are strong in the place of a woman, in our position as females. It doesn't mean we are the strongest of the society. It means we are strong in the position of a female. But the way they describe it in the world is that the black woman is the strongest in the society, stronger than her male sometimes. She's to be the pillar. She is a pillar, but they make it seem she's to be the pillar of strength in her family. When really our strength is a show of our softness, to be honest. Our strength is shown through our vulnerability and our sacrifice and our surrender. Surrender is our strength. That's not how they mean it in the world. They mean the black woman is strong. She could go through this. She could have 10 baby daddies, do this, do that. All those stereotypes, and say the black woman in her mouth is, that's one thing that maybe I picked up in the world, or maybe it's even a white girl thing, so to speak, that I picked up in the world, is the way the female is able to just talk and talk and talk and back talk and disrespect using her mouth in the world. You know, women have a voice in the world. Women have a voice in reality, but in the world, disrespect has become allowed. It's almost become seen as like knowledge, like the woman is more knowledgeable than anyone else. Women can say and do whatever they want. And that has become a part of these personas. Women's rights, so to speak, has become a part of these personas. Black women, white women, Spanish, whoever. This thing of women's rights, where women can do and say whatever they want, the whole feminist thing, or the fake feminist thing. The fake feminist thing has become a part of the identity of black women, white girls, everyone. And it's not real. I hope this is coming across well. Like, it's not real. It's not reality. What's reality is that we are just native persons. Us so-called black people are just native persons. And I even say, yes, I'm not a black woman because I don't subscribe to that label that came out of slavery and that we need to detach from, so that we do not repeat the same cycles and repeat the things we learned in the world, the behaviors we learned in the world. I'm not an Oreo. I'm not a black woman who acts like a white girl because I picked up or was around white girls, because that's also fake. That's not real. It's not reality. The persona of a white girl is not reality. Even if I speak a certain way, or maybe sometimes I have an attitude a certain way that's like a black girl, or it's like a white girl, whatever it's like, it's not real. So I need to detach from that. You need to detach from that. Maybe I walk a certain way that's like a black girl sometimes. Maybe I talk a certain way that's like a white girl sometimes. Either way, it's not reality. So I need to detach from that and be present in my behaviors and make sure that my behaviors are always reflecting reality, always reflecting the fact that I am just an indigenous being. And I also added to say that I'm not just a West African, because I could say I'm not a black girl, I'm West African. I hear people say that all the time. I'm not a black girl, I'm West African. I'm not talking like a white girl, I'm not doing this, I'm not this or that, I'm African. But guess what? Africa is facing judgment as well. So I don't even want to say I'm West African, or you shouldn't even feel the need to say you're East African or North or South African, Central African, because like I said, Africa is done. Africa, the so-called continent, yes, the land is sacred, this is Eden. However, the people have been compromised. We are compromised. Me as a West African, yes, we have our native ways that we hold on to, traditions that you can see if you look really hard, and the ways we behave come from our native ancestors, right? So as a West African, I can say for myself, we have ways that we have held on from generation to generation that are indigenous native behaviors and beliefs and practices. However, that is a small percentage of our behaviors and our ways of life in West Africa. As a West African myself, I will say that we have many, many behaviors that are not reality. It might be a little bit different than in the West, because I can't say that a certain persona was created by the slave master, but in West Africa, for example, we create this persona. It was also created by the slave master, because we changed our ways. We were made to believe that we were barbaric, that being indigenous, being native is barbaric, is being uneducated, so to speak, is being uncivilized. But we need to be uncivilized. We need to return to being uncivilized. We do not need to be like the civilized man. We do not need to be like him. And that's where all of these fake identities and personas come out of, the need to be civilized. They brought Africans into the West and civilized them, so to speak, into this box of being black people, or quote unquote black Americans. Not even that term African American, it's so-called black American is a term for those persons who were enslaved and have just lived in the West for generations. They've become so-called black Americans. That's not real. Don't fall into this box of being a black woman. You're more than that. We are not black women. We're not black women. We are native women. And we need to focus on those principles and those ways of life and ways of behaving, so that we can be examples to our daughters, to our families, so that we can be light. And none of those behaviors from the world of a black woman, or like I said, some people want to say I act like a white girl. I don't care. That's why I've said it so many times. That doesn't offend me at all. Say these personas of a black girl, white girl, Spanish girl, Indian girl, whatever, they don't exist. They're not real. They're simply behaviors, simply personas, simply identities simply boxes that are made by the world, because the world itself is false. So if you're in the world, you need to have a mask on. So being a black woman is a mask. Being a white girl is a mask. Acting like a Spanish girl is a mask. All of these are masks because the world is a stage. So when you're on stage, you have lines to read and you have a mask to wear and you have a persona to uphold. But when you're in reality, you realize reality is not a theater. Reality is not a stage. Like, this is the Most High's creation. And within the Most High's creation, there are no boxes or labels or identities. There is order, but there's no boxes. Everything is reality. And that's how I know I'm not a black woman. That's how I know I'm not a West African. I'm not Ilwe. I'm not. I am native. I'm organic to this environment. And that's all. So I don't need to... This is even like a message to myself and my mirrors. I hope that will cite this, that we need to let go of that so-called identity of being a black woman, identity of and behaviors of being African, so to speak, and just be a part of reality and be open to the truth. So yes, I hope this was understood, because we do not need to hold on to that persona that the slave master made of a black woman. Even this black culture that we've made, it was made out of survival, a need for survival. It was a survival tactic, the creation of black culture. We don't need to hold on to any of these personas or any of these labels, because these behaviors, like I said, they do not help us. They hurt more than help. Yeah. Just remember, we are native and we need to uphold reality at all times and take off that mask. These are like scars on us, to be honest. The world has left scars on us. We need to take off the masks, the multiple masks, take off the costume, take off the makeup, everything that we picked up in the world, and just be in reality. And that way we can move forward with family and truth, and that's the only way we will have unity. That's the only way we will have serenity in our families, because imagine all different persons coming together with all of these scars from the world and these behaviors that we picked up. It's like chaos. It's always a battle that way. So it's important to take off all that makeup, like I said, take off the costume, because that's the only way we can have oneness. Yeah, I'm not a black woman even though I look like it. I'm not West African even though I look like it. And no, I'm not behaving like a white girl even though you might think that. Alright. That was I was just being funny. Oh, okay. Well, I hope everyone has a blissful day. Guide eye, heal eye, girl eye have eye.